of man's first disobedience and the fruit of that forbidden tree, whose mortal taste brought death into the world and all of our woe.
The program you are about to hear is fiction, science fiction. We make no guarantees, however, how long it will remain fiction, fiction, fiction.
Strictly prohibited salutations to all you cognonauts out there, and welcome to another episode of Exofathom, the show that dares to explore the outside reaches of understanding and thought. I am Nick, and I am joined with my two lovely co-hosts, as always. Mike, how are you?
Ah, man, you know me. I'm hanging in there.
Wonderful. And we have Ayla here. How you doing, Ayla?
I am well, and I'm thinking extra hard because you said prohibited salutations, I think. So I didn't know if I was going to say hi back or say anti-salutations or
okay.
how else to respond.
Strictly prohibited. Okay, good.
Was it strictly? I knew it was something like don't salutations.
Yes, indeed. Don't salutations.
Antitations?
Yes.
Mixing words.
Ooh, that would have been a good word. Antitations.
Well, and good. I'm doing good. My ear is totally clogged up right now, so I'm having some hearing issues. But aside from that, I am doing okay. And we hope that you guys are doing okay tuning in. We hope that you're having a wonderful day or whenever you're tuning in with us. We appreciate you all so much. Tonight, we're going to talk about the forbidden fruit, which is a story that I think a lot of people are pretty familiar with, but we'll go over the sort of outlines of the story, maybe some of the implications in philosophy and psychology, as well as some questions about free will and perhaps whether we are trying to take another bite of that forbidden fruit currently. All of that and more in this episode of Exofathom. So buckle up, stay tuned, grab some popcorn, and enjoy. I don't know why you'd have to buckle up, but hopefully
are we hitting
eating popcorn and driving.
Don't buckle up.
Yes. And now for a word from our sponsors.
Do you drink coffee? Yeah. Would you like to have this coffee brand coffee? Or how about beer brand beer? Or vodka brand vodka?
I like it. So we usually kick off our episodes with a question, and I wanted to ask you guys this simple question, which is actually probably a bit too simple, but it's okay. It might start the conversation. What makes something tempting?
Oh. For me, I guess there are like taboo elements. Like when I think of temptation, I immediately jump to like taboo things.
Mm-hmm.
Or things like illegal things you're not allowed to do. Like my mind jumps back to being a teenager and like having that first beer, underage drinking, or
they're coming for you, man.
I know, right?
Right as you said that,
or jumping the border and getting here illegally, or even like smoking weed. Like there's a big taboo around it, and that kind of makes it even more tempting to want to try. Right, especially during like that rebellious phase. So I think, I think I'm good with that answer.
Yeah, I think that's I think taboo is definitely a big element to it. Ayla, what do you think? What makes something tempting?
I had to laugh to myself because when you asked that question, the first thing that came to mind was Winnie the Pooh, and he was like smacking his lips, and he's like, could use some honey right about now. So I think for me, it's like the thing that requires a little extra effort to get, and that's a little bit rare. He's not eating honey all the time, and then and it has to be really good, whatever's on the other side, because why risk a hive of bees, but he does it.
Yeah.
Also, it makes me think like, dang, that got embedded in my mind, like the association of like something being tempting
Hmm.
Originated with Winnie the Pooh at a very young age, apparently.
I think maybe all of us at some point in the cartoons. I can vividly remember many a cartoon where there are two characters that are on a lifeboat or on a deserted island, and all of a sudden one character looks at another and he turns into a big
Pork
giant
chop.
pork chop or a pot roast or like a leg of
Right.
lamb, and that character starts salivating, right?
That's right. And it's just eyeballs and it's looking at the friend like,
Right.
what are you staring at me for?
Right. So I like that you guys brought up the concept of taboo. Ayla, you brought up sort of effort and scarcity. I think that those can be added to the equation. And I think I can add one more element to the equation here. And I think it's there's a level of desire. And desire in the face of either an external or an internal ethic or code. So I think that that's what makes something tempting, because inherently it has to be something that you're not supposed to do, right? Like Mike said with the taboo. But it doesn't necessarily have to be against the law. It could just be against your code of ethics. So I think that there's a little element of desire there as well, something kind of like seduction, I guess.
And risk, right? Because like once you cross your own moral code, it might be tempting just to stay there.
Right. Who says that you'll want to stay in the garden? Maybe you want to leave the garden forever, right? Yeah. That's good. I'm glad that we got those juices flowing. I really just wanted to introduce that question so that we can entry into the story of the forbidden fruit. Are you guys familiar with the story at all? I know Mike probably is. Ayla?
Less so. I think it might have come up in like a Veggie Tales I was forced to watch when I slept over at my Christian friend's house. But aside from carrots and an apple, that it made me feel conflicted because it was a show about fruit.
So it's a cannibalism show.
Exactly. And I just was like looking at everybody. I'm like, wait a minute. I thought you guys were supposed to be like, not this. I don't know.
have a question. If you water an apple tree with apple juice, are you forcing the apple tree to become a cannibal?
These are questions I don't know. I mean, it really makes you wonder. And and then how would it affect the fruit that you eat from that tree? Like, you get like the Antichrist version of an apple.
Super apple. Is it the same thing as putting powdered milk in your normal milk? Like now you have super milk?
Yeah, maybe. And
these are the things that I think about.
I saw a video and it was some woman was putting powdered ketchup on her scrambled eggs, and the person who shared it was beside themselves because there is a bottle of liquid ketchup right next to her. It's just like, why would you use powdered ketchup when
I
you
didn't
have
even know
regular
there was
ketchup?
such a thing.
Me neither.
Now you got to use powdered and liquid ketchup for the ultimate ketchup.
Yes.
It looked like she poured Fun Dip on her eggs.
Ew. She might have. Knowing today's trends, who knows? It's possible. So Ayla, yeah, you're a little bit less familiar with the tale of the Garden of Eden and the forbidden fruit. So
Correct.
I will give a little bit of a summary, and then maybe we'll go into the actual text in Genesis that talks about it specifically. But the forbidden fruit is the name given. Yes.
Can I interrupt for just a second?
Sure.
I was just thinking about our listeners.
Destroyed my flow. What?
Well, I figured you were just about to read some little snippet and I'd give you a moment of reprieve, get some water or something. But also, I thought, if we were more savvy with the editing and stuff like that, this could be a segment where like a little screen pops in and it's like stories with Nick. Because I know like with the mythology episodes, I enjoy it. I'm like, ooh, you put myself on mute. Get myself some tea and just like listen to a story. So anyway, if you're listening, hit pause and then that kind of substitutes it.
I don't know how I feel about your railroading because it was complimentary, but it also was railroading. So you're
I'm
back
sorry.
at you're back at 0. I gave you points for the compliment, but then you also interrupted me. So
We're being scored? Well,
I'm
It's
kidding.
like this is whose lines is it anyways. Points don't matter.
Yes, the
Don't
points
worry.
really don't matter. No, I
Go
appreciate
for
that. Yeah. At some point, hopefully, we'll be able to sort of add graphics on the fly and stuff like that. But
I wouldn't
and
mind switching over to like pre-recorded storytelling though. That'd be
Yeah.
kind of neat.
you could do that too. Definitely,
Mixing little stage plays and stuff.
I'd be down. Yeah. But just to give the sort of overview of the forbidden fruit, it was given to the name of the fruit growing in the Garden of Eden, which God commands to mankind not to eat. In the biblical story, Adam and Eve eat from the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil and are exiled from Eden. So I did a little bit of research on just the concept of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, because I thought to myself that's always sort of rung as an interesting title for a tree name. But I guess through the translations, what you find out is that the tree of knowledge of good and evil just sort of roughly means the tree of knowledge of everything. Because within the sort of ancient texts, they use the scope of good and evil to encompass the idea of everything. So what they were really eating from was the tree of knowledge of everything, or else, or in other words, the tree of omniscience. I wanted to make that little clarification up front because I've always had that thought in my head as to why it was named that. But question for you guys, because this has always bothered me about the story, and there's going to be a lot of questions throughout this story. So why is the tree there in the first place? If the tree is in the Garden of Eden, and the Garden of Eden is a paradise that God creates for Adam and Eve, why is it there in the first place?
There's I don't know if it's biblical or it goes older, but there is some question of that in some ancient story about why it's there, and I forget the exact reason that's given. Like the angels are asking God a bunch of different questions. I think God just smites them. I forget, but it's just generally, I think, a free will thing. Like God just leaves it there because He's generally curious as to what humans will do. Don't quote me on that. I may be wrong with like scholastically wrong, but just free thinking wise, I think that makes the most sense to me. It's
Yeah.
like
And
yeah,
I feel like we
so-
should definitely preface the conversation that none of us are theologians here, and we're not going to have the theological answer. So please allow us to sort of wrap our minds around the deeper metaphors in this story. Ayla, why do you think there would be a thing that you're not allowed to do in a place that is considered paradise?
well, I'm glad you added the disclaimer because,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about our core principles, and in our description, it does call for a pinch of conspiracy. So here's my hot take.
Okay.
I think that the tree is simply there because without it, sin would not exist. And without sin, you cannot punish. And so I think that what is it? There's this theory that I don't know, that aliens seeded Earth so that we're sort of like cattle, and like something like that. So if that's the case, it would make sense that you would create a situation where which ones to cull from the herd, maybe.
Oh, like a litmus test.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So that's where I'm gonna go.
So you're going
Put my flag
the
right
more
there.
okay, you're going the more Prometheus route. And maybe what else is that? More of like the Promethean route, right? Or some Nibiru
There you go.
what are they called?
Oh.
Damn it, man.
it's a Nibiru.
No.
Nibiru and the Anunnaki. That's what it is.
Oh, okay, there it is. Yeah. Which is funny because I still don't know what the Anunnaki thing is about, but for some reason I have a library book that I had to pay a fee on about the Anunnaki.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that's about. We got comments here too.
Oh yeah, hold on. Sorry, there we go. Hey Corey. Thanks for
Hello.
stopping by. They knew it was wrong to eat. It was a lesson that bad things will happen when you do bad things. Adam and Eve were not the first real people, according to Jordan Peterson. They are your folk. Folk? Your folk.
I don't know, Nick. Who are your folk? Are you one of
I
the
have no idea.
reptilians? No, I'm kidding.
I thought we were going to get into some Lilith stuff.
I think he means
Ur,
like the ancient city of Ur.
Oh, dang, that went right over my head. Good call.
I
I've been watching a lot of like Nat Geo Ancient Aliens while I'm on my spin bike, so forgive me. I'm on the alien thing. It's just entertaining.
There's some stuff in Paradise Lost about this, I think, too. Where Paradise Lost by Milton, where after they eat it, Eve convinces Adam to kind of try to cover things up for her. Like she knows that it's bad and all that, and convinces him to bite the apple as well. Like, and also eggs and both of them getting thrown out of paradise.
Did she though?
Hey, women have convinced me to do some very stupid things, so I believe it.
Did they though? I'm just saying.
Did
There's
they,
going to be an agenda. I'm going to be that pinched.
Yo, why can't you?
You know what?
Why can't you just eat the apple on your own and feel secure in your decision? Why do you need some sort of backup for everything you do?
This certainly isn't going to be the conversation to get in your feelings about, because it's quite critical of the lady's place in the whole thing, but it's also very critical of Adam's place. He is not blameless. He is just as guilty. So
Adam was the original simp, and I will not like anything.
you know what's interesting now that we're like getting into it. If this was like, Judge Judy or something like that, wouldn't Adam be tried less harshly than the one who had the idea, right? Like you've got the kingpin and then you've got like the followers, and they don't usually suffer as bad because they did less of a crime.
No, well, interestingly,
but these two get judged the same.
They get judged the same because in God's eyes, Adam was supposed to not listen to Eve. And the fact that he listens to Eve makes him just as guilty.
So he just condemned Eve from the beginning?
No, because Eve is the one that originally bites the fruit and eats of the fruit and then feeds it to Adam. But since Adam ingests the fruit himself and doesn't listen to God, he's just as guilty as Eve is. And
good on Adam for backing up his partner,
his lady.
Right, of course. Yeah. And yes, actually, we're definitely not. Thanks, Corey. We're not forgetting the serpent. That's for sure. So we can get into this story.
Scratch himself.
Yes. So the story goes roughly. I guess I can just read it for you guys from Genesis. It says this is quoted as the sort of the fall of mankind, and it's Genesis 3. And it says, "Now the serpent was more cunning than any animal of the field which the Lord had made. He said to the woman, has God really said, 'You shall not eat from the tree, from any tree in the garden?' The woman said to the serpent, 'From the fruit of trees of the garden we may eat, but from the fruit of the tree which is in the middle of the garden, God has said, Ye shall not eat from it or touch it, or you will die.' The serpent said to the woman, 'You shall certainly not die, for God knows that on the day you eat it, from your eyes will be opened, and you will become like God, knowing good and evil.'" And then let's see, it goes on to say, "When the woman saw the tree was good for food, and that it was delight to the eyes, and that the tree was desirable to make one wise, she took from its fruit and ate, and she also gave some to her husband with her, and he ate as well." So it's interesting because I was looking about the serpent. Serpent is this character that is in the Garden of Eden. It's one of God's creations. And interestingly, according, at least in what I've researched in the Bible, the serpent is only one of two animals that can talk, the other being a donkey at some point in the Bible. But the serpent can speak. And so What do you guys think is going on here? Is it because I can see that the sort of naturalist explanation of being snakes are dangerous and we get afraid of snakes and whatever, but why is the serpent in the garden? Why is it a character? Why is it the sort of symbol of rebellion in this story?
Can you read back the conversation again?
Yes.
Just what did
Sorry
she?
about that.
Yeah, just because I'm just trying to remember.
No worries. I honestly am having a hard time hearing myself right now. So it's the serpent says to Eve, has God told you that you cannot eat from any of the trees in the garden? And so Eve tells the serpent, no, he says that we can eat from the trees in the garden, just not the one in the middle, being a reference to the tree of knowledge of good and evil. She says that Eve tells the serpent then that God says that if they eat from that tree, they certainly will die. To which the snake replies, you're not going to die. God knows that if you eat the tree, you'll become like God. And that's why he's not wanting you to eat from it. This was good enough for Eve, I guess. And that's what convinces her to take the fruit.
It's really interesting because this is reminding me of first year logic, where you learn one of the simplest, things is that, I'm going to butcher this, but it's along the lines of like, if all A's are B's and all B's are C's, is it true that all A's are C's? And
Right.
most people would be like, yeah. But then it's like, aha, but no, because we didn't specify this other directional correlation or whatever. So it's a false inference. And so I think that it's like one of the first things to sort of point out how common sense can get mixed up sometimes because of the language of things. And so I find it interesting that if that's the case, that's sort of like his are all tree, can you not eat all trees? She's like, oh yeah, but all trees but this tree. And then he says, well, no, you won't die. And so he redefines it. So he points out the issue of linguistics and meaning and stuff. So I kind of wonder, like, if it's one of the few creatures that can talk, maybe it's there to sort of like point out the failures of language and sort of like the stories about knowing how to follow rules and not assuming that you know better or something, maybe.
Yeah, I think again, this is why I like this story so much, is because you can really stop at any point of it and just dig and dig. So the snake acting as some sort of agent in the Garden of Eden, whether for God's favor or against God's favor, is a good point. I don't 100% perceive to know why God would choose to create the snake if he's a backstabber.
Right. And what's the donkey up to? Where's the donkey?
That's not in the Garden of Eden. That's later on in the Bible. It was
so
just
he makes the snake then the donkey, or do they both exist at the same point in time, just not in the story?
No, I'm sorry. The snake is one of two animals that speaks in the Bible. The donkey is just in another part of the Bible, not related to the story.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, what is the? I don't know. I shouldn't go down that route.
What is? I didn't look up the donkey, Ayla. I'm sorry. I should have.
Okay. Go ahead, Mike.
All right. Wait, are we talking about Shrek? What are we talking about here? We're about talking donkeys. No. Are we going to expanded universe, or are we just sticking to Genesis?
Well, I mean, you can definitely explain the Gnostic idea if you'd like.
Well, I mean,
it's an interpretation for sure.
Yeah, Paradise Lost. The snake is actually Satan, who has disguised himself as a snake and can speak perfectly fine. Has figured out God's thing to create humans and do all of that stuff. God actually knows about it, but just lets it happen. Again, I think it points more towards free will, but I think linguistic pointing sort of pointing out the venom of language, because they don't die, right? They just get cast out of paradise.
Right. Yes. And we'll get to the consequences soon. Yes.
And it sort of becomes like the nowadays in the modern thing of like, well, did you die? Like, when you're driving with a friend who drives really fast and reckless, and you get there safe, but it's like, I don't know if I want to be in a car with that person. Like, sure, you didn't die, but the experience of living might have been worse than if you would have just listened to, say, your better judgment, not gone with that person.
I call bullshit on that question too, because the asker isn't asking a question when the other person can't respond when they're wrong because they're dead.
Well, the serpent also.
Well, you don't know that.
That's the only other case.
They might be dragging the other person down to hell, being like, "You did this to me. How dare you?"
They survive out of spite just so they can confront their friend. Okay, I'm about to die in 3 seconds, so moted.
That, or Adam and Eve were parcel tongues, and they could just talk to.
Oh boy. Yeah, I honestly, I'm not sure. I know that there's in this sort of Persian tradition, the story of the snake associated with knowledge and enlightenment and all that stuff comes from a story in which a king is traveling through the desert and this snake pops up out of nowhere, and he grabs a rock to hit the snake in the head, but misses, and it strikes a piece of flint on the ground. And that's creates a fire in the bush, and that's how the Persians say they receive fire from the snake. So there's interesting ties to the snake and knowledge and enlightenment and all of this stuff, and the snake obviously being the gatekeeper here to this concept of eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Let's see.
And humans and snakes have always been kind of intertwined, even before written language, right? I still think, is it a myth or is it an actual thing that pregnant women can sense snakes? I don't know, an old wives' tale that was true or not.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's quite possible that there are instances in which that's the case. I know that women can see different shades of more shades of color than men, and that could possibly was supposed to help with gathering fruit, but also it potentially could have helped in spotting snakes in trees.
Yeah, because we used to live in trees, right? We were arboreal, whatever the word is. And snakes, I think, were the biggest killers of humans. So in that evolutionary sense, it kind of makes sense that snakes help us evolve to the point to avoid death, avoid being killed by them. Because, just like how we help spiders, the evolution of spiders by killing all the dumb ones,
Yes.
snakes helped us by killing all the dumb humans.
True. Yeah, that would be the very naturalistic explanation of it all. That, in our hunter-gatherer days, snakes were a common occurrence, and to know the danger of a snake is to have that knowledge, because somebody had to experience its danger at some point.
Yeah, maybe even going further to like, this is a big stretch, but even starting to explore early like herbal medicines, where you get bit, so you had to cover something up, and you had one lucky human predecessor that decided to put some leaf on something, or who knows.
Right.
But that's where my mind or my imagination wanders to, at least.
Certainly. And I do like this. We can come back to it afterwards, but we did touch on something that has been sort of rankling around in my mind, which is the cost of knowledge and life, or the relationship, between knowledge and life, with this concept of understanding that a snake is dangerous, and we only know that because it's killed people before. It's cost human life before. Corey's here. We got some backup. There we go. If you're walking along a hedge with shadows at your feet and you mistake a shadow for the sinuous movements of a snake, you will modify your immediate behavior to life-preserving priorities. Oh yeah, yeah. You might dance around like an elephant and a mouse too. If you have been thinking of getting ice cream or going home, it's very likely you'll choose not to take any risk and go home. Yeah, right. It's like getting spooked on your way somewhere. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Have either of you been around snakes?
yeah, yeah. I used to
Uh,
I used to babysit a snake when I was in kindergarten.
oh, it's adorable.
Yeah,
Wait, why did your class have a snake?
we just had a class snake, and we got to take it for weeks at a time.
Like a little garden snake, or
It was a rosy boa, so it was small, but
okay.
yeah.
I got to question the ethics of that teacher, but I digress. Uh, yeah, there's for me. I always had this nervous energy about them, and I think it just like I don't mind. I'm fine with snakes. I don't think they're bad creatures. You just do nature stuff, not good
Mhm.
or evil. But there's like this weird primordial or like instinctual thing of or fear of worrying about being bitten, even if it wasn't poisonous. There was still the worry of being bitten and going through that experience. It wasn't like a fear of pain or anything like that, but it was strange, and I wonder like that sort of genetic knowledge being passed down
Mm.
through the species.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like Corey said, with the shadow of a snake, even in the periphery, you see something slither. You're definitely going to take notice of that.
Yeah,
We also got some here. Knowledge of mortality. Risk, I suppose, is the natural right explanation.
yeah,
Um, Preservation of life by thinking about mortality then leads to everything wrong, shameful, sinful that we invented. Yeah, very nice. And he says the snake/eagle, known as the dragon's guard, hoards of treasure. So you have to overcome the fear of snakes to get the good stuff. Right.
and
Uh,
eagles.
yes,
There's
and
giant eagles
eagles.
that used to pick people up and kill them.
Yes, there
They're
are
around in like New Zealand
the
for until they get
thunderbirds,
dangerous.
man.
This is ridiculous. Yeah, those two.
That's insane.
Could you imagine
Gigantic,
just hanging out, just doing human stuff, and all of a sudden an eagle picks you up?
man. No, thank you. Um, and this is a good point, Corey. Bring back the preservation of life by thinking about mortality, then leads to everything wrong, shameful, sinful that we then invented. Right. So this concept of, and I guess we can get to the consequences now, right? Because the snake seduces Adam and Eve to eat for the forbidden fruit, and upon eating it, they are immediately aware of their nakedness. And at this point in existence, God is just chilling and walking around in the Garden of Eden, which I think is totally fascinating, because I think it might be the only time that God, except for Jesus, that God walks the earth. But in Genesis, it explicitly says he walks amongst the Garden of Eden. So he's going for a stroll one day, and Adam and Eve are working furiously to fashion fig leaves to cover themselves up. And that cues God into thinking, like, hey, something's going on here. And of course, he gets very upset. He basically says, did you guys eat from the fruit? And they're like, no, we didn't. We swear we didn't eat from the fruit. He's like, why are you covering yourselves up then? And the jig is up, obviously. But before I go any further, I think that this ties right back to this concept of mortality, right? This awareness of how fragile you are, and the metaphor of nakedness, and wanting to, upon the awareness of realizing that, wanting to cover yourself up immediately, protect
Yeah,
yourself.
with every little bit of um, of knowledge comes a little bit of going back to like that risk and danger stuff, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
have you ever cooked with oil and been shirtless and learned
Oh,
that lesson real quick on why you shouldn't do that?
yes.
And of course, cooking, fire, all of that, one of the first knowledges, and later comes oil and butter and all that good stuff. But yeah, and the sort of knowledge also brings a wider gain of consciousness, and I think shame might be the emotional consequence to a expanded consciousness when you add in the variable of risk,
Mm.
and that ties back to mortality, right? Like the the sort of thing beneath the kernel beneath that.
Yes.
But if you're in paradise, you don't have knowledge of anything, like those prey animals that, or prey animals, like those animals that live without any predators. They just sort of chirp around, and they're not afraid of anything. It's that awareness, that consciousness I don't know about, which makes sense why once you bite the fruit of knowledge of everything, you kind of figure out that, oh, we're actually extremely fragile. We should cover up. That expresses itself through shame within conscious minds.
Yeah, I think the shame is definitely a very big part in that. Just the awareness and maybe just the cost of knowledge in itself. Ayla, what do you think? What's up with the nakedness?
I don't know. I'm just thinking back to my funny thought earlier about us being seated, and maybe it wasn't to treat us like cows. Maybe God was really an alien that took tremendous risk to bring us to this planet and establish a nudist colony, and
Oh,
they
okay.
messed up,
Gotcha.
they ruined everything, and he's like,
Right.
God bless it, and it's over.
I think he said, he said, I bless it.
I bless it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
What kind of hippie alien cult are we talking about here? Because then, why'd you give us nerves to feel pain? We didn't have any
Well,
nerves to feel
it's so
pain.
funny is that,
naked.
she's just explaining the entire backstory of Assassin's Creed. The
Oh
entire
yeah, the golden.
Am I?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
entire
Damn.
Assassin's Creed franchise is based on this idea that humans were seeded on Earth by an advanced civilization.
Nice.
And that the Adam and Eve story was actually this
Angry nudist.
Eden was just this prison that had proto-humans in it that eventually escaped.
Which makes sense from an alchemist point of view with metaphors and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, that would be the Gnostic perspective, right? So the Gnostic perspective reveres the snake as a
bringer of knowledge.
Yes, a bringer of knowledge, and that the Garden of Eden itself was a prison because of the fact that it was under such, I guess the Gnostics would call it like benevolent tyranny.
Sure. I think you need both, though. You need the free will to kind of get yourself in risk and danger and acquire new things and knowledge, but you also have to know when kind of enough is enough to know. There is a such thing as knowing too much, and that can be extremely dangerous. Like, through knowledge kind of becomes more of a curse. You get into the whole like Cassandra thing, right? Where you can know everything in the world, but nobody will believe you when you say it, simply because you just know too much to be able to communicate it back to other people. So I think you need a balance there, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's a prison. I think that is a knowledge addict's point of view that gives them the excuse to continue to learn, rather than being happy with what they have at certain points.
Right. Yeah. Becomes a justification for the continuance of the knowledge. Yeah.
And then those also that type of stuff too, where is actually you could get into being able to pass bullshit upon people, because that thirst for knowledge will make you want to learn more and more and more, and that's when you can start to lie to people and kind of get away with things.
Become more deceptive.
Oh yeah.
Right. Let's see. Corey says they also believe that the god in the story was an actual big G god. The one in the story was the demiurge, a type of demon. Correct. Right. That the god that would have created Eden was actually some sort of lower ranking false god that imprisoned us, which kind of falls into the terms of the alien seeding concepts, right? Because if God is the top of the hierarchy, you could possibly see aliens as the demiurge that bring the human civilization to Earth.
Well, thanks for being a fuck up. I'm not sure who you shared it.
Yeah, I mean, when you start thinking about this story, it does get to be really interesting. It's making me think about the Thoth episode and how that, is God of knowledge and pros and cons. A lot of pros and cons. And I think that episode, I came away with this like law of diminishing returns.
Right.
Um, and I do wonder, because there are these waves that I think come through humanity when like things progress to a point and then there's a group of people that are like, you know what, just get rid of it, let's just go back and like, like I'm thinking about folks that are like completely anti-technology right now, right? Like I can
Um,
see the argument for that and I can see the argument against it, and I think that like humans probably, especially now, have to really struggle with the burdens of growing knowledge, kind of like what you were saying, Mike. Maybe I'm just repeating what you said, but um yeah.
No, I think you're fine. I think when it gets to things like that, there's local maximas that we hit as a species where like knowledge will kind of go all the way up and then kind of peter out for a bit because these are like your golden ages for certain civilizations and take off again. But when you're at that crest, when you're at the maybe when your initial derivative, your initial slope is at like the highest, like it's going most up, then it becomes very hard for humans to deal with from a living point of view. But then once you get over that, you kind of get into like this golden age, and then it picks up again.
Yeah, and I was watching Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the one with Robert De Niro, and it reminded me of the book. And in the book, a lot of it is sort of like a critique on, I guess maybe surgeons at the time, because there was a lot of learning happening, but the way it was being done wasn't the most humane or ethical, so to speak. And so, yeah, like you're saying, you've got the valleys and then the peaks.
Hey, you got to crack a few skulls to get into neuroscience, all right? I don't know what to tell you. You can be living or dead. You can figure it out.
Got to break some eggs.
That's an awful joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. No, I'm just thinking about like, yeah,
Yeah, no, like there's like
the early ways. Well, yeah, like they used to do burr holes for, I think what, seizures maybe? Was that what they did them for? I mean, obviously it still works for brain swelling, but I think there was like cutting the hemispheric connections and all this weird stuff. But anyway,
People used to, people used to line up for blocks and blocks and blocks to get an ice pick shoved up their nose and
like
puncture
that.
their occipital lobe.
Mm-hmm.
accident gigs.
Oh, I'm sorry, they get lobotomized, right? Their frontal lobe, not their occipital lobe.
Like the state of the art tech, and where you have to be gain a meta awareness of technology, which is a little bit of a hard thing to do. Because otherwise, then you're just riding all the trends of technology, and that's where you could get into trouble.
Right. And we go back to the cost of knowledge and all of that, tending to always be some sort of energetic demand.
It usually goes down to the like nobody asking if there's a better way to do something, especially in terms of like medical technology and things like that. Like this is just our standard level of tech. To put full faith in that becomes a very weird and scary thing. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I agree. So back on the rails for this. They took a bite. They're all aware that they're naked. They're sewing their fig leaf clothing, and God, as he's strolling through the Garden of Eden, comes across them, and he's like, "What's going on, guys?" And they're like, nothing. We're, at first they pretend not to hear him, which is hilarious. Um,
Hey, that's what I do. I
These
would have
teenagers?
still been
yeah.
like walking around the Garden of Eden with God just yelling into my ear.
He's walking through the garden, like calling for them, and and he finally finds them, and he's like, "Where have you guys been?"
Did
And
they
they're
even
like,
know who he was?
"No, they knew who. Oh, they definitely. I mean, he created them, so he knew who God. They knew who God was."
Yo, New Eden, who this?
But yeah, he comes upon them. He's like, "Hey, I've been calling you guys. What's going on?" And they're like, "Yeah, no, we didn't hear you. Sorry. Now we're here now. What's going on? What's up?" And he's like, "Why are you wearing those leaves? Why are you covering up?" And they say, "Because we're naked." And he says, "Who told you that you were naked?"
Where'd you learn that word naked?
Right. And so God is grilling Adam and Eve at this point, and they have to admit that they took from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And this is where God is like, all right, well, first of all, he helps them make their fig leaf clothes. He finishes them for them. And then
That's
he
nice.
says, yeah, he at least did that. And then he basically curses Adam and Eve, and removes them from Eden. They're cast out of Eden into the lands of the world, where Adam is destined to toil with his hands in order to eat, and where the fruit will always have thorns and bristles, and basically you're going to spend your entire life, making bread for the evening. And to Eve, he he curses her with pain in childbearing, and
Disproportionate.
yeah, it did feel a little bit disproportionate.
You say that now, but back in the day, I don't know. I mean, it took a bunch of men to go kill one animal. Pretty sure, like there's the KD on that per day was pretty rough.
Oh
You
yeah, I
know,
mean, there was definitely a lot of guys getting gored by various animals for
Seems
sure.
like y'all figured that issue out, though.
hey,
We
C-sections are
just
pretty
killed all
common
the
nowadays.
mammoths.
Yeah, we killed everything. C-sections and epidurals. Now fix it right up.
Mhm.
Don't mind the
Needles
next.
right in the spine.
Don't mind the next like couple years of pain and lifetime of stitches. Don't worry about that.
You know what's messed up though is like if they mess up the timing of the epidural, you could feel the full of everything because it wears off, and then like sometimes you can't do. I don't know. The timing apparently is a thing.
That's why we just got to get those uh, uh, synthetic wombs, and then once the fertilization happens, pull that out and throw that in the womb and let it cook.
I like the idea of artificial wombs. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. That's one where I'm like, I don't mind the wisdom.
Every house will have one. It'll be like an oven, but for babies.
Oh my god! All right. Anyways, let's get back on track here.
Easy bake oven.
Yeah.
It's all pink with little flowers.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
All right. Well, so God curses Adam and Eve. Again, Adam is destined to work with his hands and basically have to work all day just to feed himself. Eve is given the curse of pain during childbirth, and they're cast out of Eden because God is worried. Because there was a second tree, you guys. There was another tree in the Garden of Eden that God definitely didn't want Adam and Eve to eat. But before we get to that, I should also mention that he curses the serpent as well as a punishment for tricking Adam and Eve.
Oh, he does.
And he curses the serpent to walk on its belly on the ground and eat the dust.
Wait. How is it a snake before it became a snake?
Well, and it's kind of interesting too.
I don't like the way you said that.
Because
he's about to drop some knowledge.
Well, snakes have proto legs, or they have not proto legs, but they have remnants of legs on their stomachs. So there's a little bit of a naturalist tie in there, because at some point the snake in the biblical Eden apparently had some form of legs, else it didn't need to be cursed to walk on its belly in the dirt.
Imagine that. Now, I mean, do we have any idea of how many legs this snake had? Because, like,
No, it
if
doesn't
it's a
mention.
snake with 2 legs, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, just 2 long legs and high heels. Just like, hey.
But it's 3 legs, there's 20 legs. I'm trying to picture this talking snake. It's weird.
100 legs just make it more frightening. Yeah.
Yeah, and then in that case, it's a freaking centipede. You're just
Wait,
describing a centipede.
wait. Where do the high heels come from? This is what
I don't know.
That's true. Nick did add the high heels.
I was just thinking a snake with like, do you know the leg lamp from
Christmas Story?
A Christmas Story? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I was just thinking a snake with 2 of those leg lamp legs, like the pantyhose and the high heels. I don't know.
Like,
That's how I seduced Eve.
Yes.
Like,
With the spirited can.
Wow.
a spirited can.
Yeah, very
Mhm, mhm.
spirited.
I'm gonna put that in the back pocket.
Yes.
I think there's like one of like a couple people that can pull off that phrase. I'm gonna try to be one of them.
Do it. So after God curses the snake, he casts Adam and Eve out of Eden because he's worried about the second tree. The second tree that only really gets mentioned after the fact, which is called the tree.
I just want to go back to the cursing thing because
Yes.
he cursed Adam, Eve, and one snake, and yet somehow all humans, all snakes have been cursed. Like,
yes.
That, like, so one of 2 things: either that's just sort of like, well, you've ruined it for everybody, or there's like a shared sort of like responsibility there. So
that would basically explain all religions. All the different sects of religions believe something different about that concept.
Interesting. Okay.
Mhm.
And that could arguably be the Tower of Babel.
Right.
Where all those different religions make sure that we can't communicate with each other. Someone in a car. Continue.
My goodness.
Yeah, was that a dog or a car?
That was a car. That was a dog. I would rush outside.
Run. Good. I'm glad it's not. Yeah, Corey says, "Damn serpent."
Yes. Right. Sorry. Yes, but there is one tree left, guys. The tree that God was very worried about Adam and Eve eating, because now that they have the knowledge of everything, they could have eaten the tree of life.
Yep.
And the tree of life would have given Adam and Eve the ability to be immortal. And God was very concerned about that, so he had to cast Adam and Eve out of Eden.
Would you rather be naked and immortal or smart and cursed?
I don't know. That's the question, right?
Right?
I would much rather be smart and cursed. I've seen
much rather be smart and cursed.
Yeah.
Naked and immortal.
Screw it. I'll be naked. And immortal.
I could put you through an infinite amount of time of pain. It doesn't say you don't feel any pain, right? There's a short run comic book series by Marvel called Deadpool Kills the Marvel You, and the way that he handles Wolverine is kind of ingenious, or I enjoyed it. Maybe not ingenious. I mean, it's very clear and logical. But instead of trying to find a way to kill him, he rips him apart all the way down to the atomic level and lets him form back together, and then rips him apart again. So if you're naked and immortal, sure, you'll be immortal, but that doesn't necessarily mean you won't feel pain.
Corey says the demiurge wasn't dealing with a couple of Draculas. Yes, right. Exactly.
Those damn vampires. Could you imagine they ate from the tree of life and then ate from the tree of knowledge?
Well, and he brings up something kind of cool too, because that's where the Gnostic myth of Lilith comes from. I believe Lilith was allowed to eat from the tree of life, and so her lineage was the sort of spawn of vampires and all sort of monsters.
I just like how she pieced out of there. She was like, "I'm not doing
yes,
with
yeah, she left voluntarily, right?"
Juices.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Yeah, no, there's Yeah, what would you do, Nick? You want to be cursed and smart, or you want to be naked and immortal?
Well, so get this. So especially in the biblical story, so they say that, oh, you're cursed with mortality. Noah, I'm sorry, Adam lived to 980 years old. So that's a pretty good run.
Yeah, but
Damn, so
you
our
still die.
Huh?
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
just because we.
you still do have to die. Yeah, that's true. But I mean, 980 years is a long time. And yes, Ayla, pre-Diluvian humans apparently in most mythologies lived like 1,000 years.
I'm
And
about
how
to start
smart did
eating
they get?
apples exclusively. Shoot, apple a day keeps the doctor away. Screw that. It keeps you 900.
And how smart did they get? Maybe there's like a thing where the smarter you get, the shorter your lifespan is.
Maybe.
Maybe.
That's a good point.
Oh, dang. Well, curiosity killed the cat, as they say.
You know.
There seems to be some sort of sense that there's a fine line between wanton curiosity and a sort of pragmatic pursuit of intellect or something like that.
Yeah, you could see the sort of the timeline of some, like Eden being the center point and then walking away from that center point allows you less and less time on Earth, but more knowledge.
And we have these things like the could die young and all of that with respect to good people, but there's different kinds of intelligence, right? It's not just I'm not just saying right as a rhetorical tool. I'm doing it to connect two ideas because I could also say fucking I could use that word, but I got in trouble for that once, and I won't do it again. But yeah, maybe along the emotional intelligence scale, there's only so kind you can be so intelligent you can be, and that shortens your lifespan, which is where I get the idea that dogs only live for however long they live for because they max out that intelligence. But that's wishful thinking.
Oh, that's so sad and accurate because they're the best.
Yeah, little dorks, but they're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this definitely the further you stray from Eden, the sort of less your life is, and it seems that way in the biblical sense as well, because each person after Adam sort of lived a little bit less time. I think Noah lived maybe 400 years, and he's like a descendant of Adam. But yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. This, right? You guys were saying this. You can sacrifice knowledge and stay sort of this immortal ignorance, or you could take a step out and risk life for experience and knowledge.
Shoot. Or maybe they're talking about the acquisition of knowledge of your, mortality. Because if you don't really think about the passage of time, if you don't really think about the fact that you will die one day, then it does feel like you're living forever because you're not, you know what I mean? Like you're not aware that you're not going to. So maybe that's part of it too, is just sort of like the apple is symbolic of knowing there's an expiration date.
Yeah, I think it's the wisdom of mortality, not so much the ignorance of mortality. Because, and this gets to more like Stoic philosophy with Seneca's life is short thing, where life is short for those who don't know how to live it. That thing where like people get on their deathbed or they get older in age, like, oh God, I gotten so old, I don't know what happened to all those years. It's like you didn't really know how to exist. That would be ignorance of mortality, because as you get closer to death, you become more aware of death. But in reality, I'm as close to death as, say, somebody that's 100 years old, right? I can get hit by a bolt of lightning, or that car you heard screech can drive through the wall and kill me, or something crazy like that. So it's I don't know if it's ignorance of mortality, living forever rather than wisdom.
I was trying to just say that, like, maybe they were unaware of the fact that they would die one day. That was sort of like when they were in their ignorant moment, it was that they weren't aware that they were mortal or not mortal.
Yeah.
The term wasn't in their mind. But then you're right, because once you deal with mortality. There's like all these different ways that you can sort of slice it and view it for sure. Who says one's right? I don't know. Who knows still?
Except Methuselah, who died at 996, not even of old age. And he says, sorry, 969 years old. Nice.
Hey,
nice.
Like, so I always laugh when I see somewhere like 96. I'm like, I know what you're doing. I know what's going on there.
Rasputin nearby. Watch the last week's episode if you didn't get that joke.
Right. Yeah, I should definitely. Okay, here. Where am I? So we're cast out of Eden. Oh, yeah. So what is the fruit? What is the fruit? Everybody has an assumption. Is it an apple? Is it something else? Well, it's a lot of things. It's considered an apple, but apparently they think that was because of a typo. Because they think that there was a translation between two words. That one was malum, and I think they mistook that word for the word that also meant apple, which is also malum, but in a different context. So the reason that we think it's apple really was popularized by Milton in Paradise Lost, and only really came out from a typo. But they also think that it was possibly grapes. There's a lot of religious scholars who would say that the grape was the forbidden fruit, especially with its ties to wine. And celebration.
No.
No, the Bacchanalia.
No. Dionysus would have a lot to argue against this. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
The fruit of the gods, that kind of makes sense.
Yep. The fig is also thrown in there. I think just because
figs are weird.
Yes, figs are very strange.
But fig Newtons, those are top tier snacks.
Dude, are fig Newtons really from figs?
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah,
I don't know. I have a problem with figs. No, it's like a Metasaurus kind of flower. I don't know.
Oh yeah, because the bugs get caught and then they just get dissolved in them.
Hornets. It's exclusively hornets. It's like such a weird evolution. Yeah, but like, I don't know. When a plant is a little too specific, it seems a little too engineered or something. I just get like, I don't know. I don't know if I should be eating that.
When women get a little bit too specific about what they eat by preference, I too get a little. I too think they're engineered or something like that. So I get.
Well, we do see more colors, so there's that.
Yeah.
And let's see. We also have the pomegranate, which was. I think that they consider that the most popular answer, just because of how abundant pomegranates were. It also ties to the Greek myth of Persephone, in that when Hades is trying to keep Persephone in the underworld, he offers her a pomegranate in order to keep her there. And so in the Greek mythology, the pomegranate was always associated with death. So the fruit being a symbol of death, or the knowledge of death, would lead it to be a pomegranate, which is the most popular. Huh?
Do you think pomegranates were poisonous at one point?
No, I don't know. Maybe they could have. Maybe they were just really sour and you just felt like you were dying, Maybe. If they're just not ripe. The other one that I found was there was a fresco in the 13th century in Plaincourt Abbey in France that depicts Adam and Eve flanking the tree of knowledge that has the appearance of a gigantic Amanita muscaria, or the psychoactive mushrooms.
They would have gone berserker on God. I don't think it was.
They would have gone berserker on God. Well, I think I think that might be a remnant of a mushroom cult that was also in around the medieval times. So
why don't they teach this stuff in high school? There was a mushroom cult. What the heck? That's weird.
Yeah, well, so mushrooms were big in European paganism, and so when Christianity came through, a lot of pagans sort of disguised themselves as normal Christian people, but then used their mushroom rituals in Christian settings.
So they use them for rituals, not like Gordon Ramsay style truffle cooking
Oh
and stuff like
no,
that.
for psychoactive rituals, yeah.
Oh.
And that becomes very common too throughout sort of like indigenous ritual traditions, where whenever Christianity went through a place, whatever religious practice and rituals were done in that land by the people there, they would disguise it as Christian rituals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a way to stay under the radar and still practice.
So you think there's a chance that the apple was really a mushroom?
Terence McKenna thought that, and of course he would think this, but he came up with the stone ape theory, right? Where he thought that prehistoric man came across a psychoactive mushroom, and that's what caused our brains to grow so quickly over such a short period of time. Because there is a major puzzle, or not a puzzle, but a question mark in human evolution at the a doubling of our brain mass over a short period of time. I don't know exactly which period, but Terence McKenna postulated that if maybe a proto-human were to have ingested a heroic dose of mushrooms, then maybe they would have passed on through their lineage that practice, and that might have helped grow the brain mass of our ancestors.
There's an implication we're working with here that this fruit still exists here on Earth. If Eden was a real place, for all we know, it could have been a vial of DMT, just grown from a tree somewhere, or some fruit that created that as a main thing, or some other sort of psychoactive substance, or it could have just been some fruit in Eden, right? That was the knowledge, and the thing that we're grasping at is some shape or some symbol of that fruit that was there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I don't know if I kind of consider it all metaphorical anyway, so I don't really think that the actual fruit matters all that much. And there's probably arguments to be said that it could have been, like the fruit is anything but a fruit anyways. Maybe it's a concept like language, or something that helps the human species grow outside of just being some regular fruit.
I can tell you, at least it wasn't a banana, because that sets up way too many easy jokes.
It's funny is that there was a mention of a banana somewhere. Hold on. Oh yeah, so in the 13th century, there was Maimonides' work that called, let's see, sorry, I lost it here. It said that in ancient Egypt and Syria, the banana was the apple of Eden.
Yep, that's it. Sex is only for procreation reasons. Blowjobs ruined everything. We got kicked out of Eden.
The damn banana.
That's what happens when you try to set up an OnlyFans in Eden and your two main actors won't stay naked.
Oh my gosh. They're just trying to cover themselves up.
Yeah. That's modesty.
And your only audience member is a serpent.
Yeah.
Well, the second tree really sort of sets up this concept that I wanted to finish on, which is the idiom taking a second bite of the apple.
Diction selection.
What's that?
Revision, please.
I'm sorry?
No, I continue. You're good.
Are you pointing out because he said I'm going to finish this?
Finish on, yeah.
Finish on. I was like, ugh.
What?
So we talked about bananas.
Double entendre.
Yeah, and then you
no.
said that this is finish on.
Oh no.
It's just
You're oh no. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
that was really
good.
precious.
All right. Well, I'm
I'm
going to finish on this right now. All right. No, this idiom called taking the second bite of the apple. And that's where I really wanted to sort of end this conversation. Because with the concept of the second tree being the tree of life, and the fear that taking a second bite of of the apple would give immortality, God casts us out of Eden. Do you think that that plays any sort of deeper psychological impact, or does it have any deeper psychological impact than just the metaphor itself? Because I can see how maybe most of humanity's experience is trying to reach at that second bite, that thing that propels us into either metaphorical immortality or quite literal immortality, as something
Yeah,
that lasts, trying to make ourselves last longer than our lives.
yeah. You one can argue that that second bite would be space exploration, right?
Mhm.
Where we're no longer cast out of the Garden of Eden. That, like Lilith, we have electively chosen to leave the Garden of Eden, Eden being Earth.
Mhm.
This should be, in theory, the only planet we need. Blah blah blah. Those sorts of theories. And if you leave Earth, then you have to do terraforming. You have to do a whole bunch of work, which just like God kind of punishing Adam with thorns and things like that. Now they're punishing humans. You have to make your own Eden. And on Earth, it's a bit far simpler than making, say, Mars Earth, or making Mars habitable so that we can live on it. So that second bite might be through space exploration, and space exploration will give us the keys to make something that lasts. Because
Mhm.
then I think if we can do that and really terraform a planet, then we would be able to escape this universe when it collapses and be one of those multi-dimensional, multi-universal beings.
Awesome.
Um, but I think the beginnings are these steps, but we really have to want to bite at that apple to get off this planet to go there.
Mm.
So then begs the question of like if Adam and Eve stayed in Eden and they populated and did all of that stuff, would Eden collapse over X amount of time? Right? Would paradise fall apart in a different way?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it. Who knows? We didn't get that far, unfortunately. We got maybe a little bit in, and then we just kind of were like, "No, we're gonna leave," which goes
Yeah,
back to the free will thing.
yeah,
Um,
we did worse than
yeah,
expected. We
yes, we
missed
did. We did worse than expected
expectations.
for sure. um, well, it also kind of reminds me of this pursuit we all have for longevity, like the advances in medicine, the advances in diet strategies and exercises and all of this stuff, where we're kind of always running towards lengthening the life, maybe trying to reach towards the days we are closer to Eden than we are now. Not by much, but maybe just enough to give us a couple more years, a couple more good years. But yeah, it does seem to me that we all have this, maybe not all of us, but there is a common idea that we are trying to um, make ourselves last as long as we can.
So here's the funny thing about that,
Mm,
as we're sort of like, as Alo was talking about earlier, with very early like medicine practices. We're a little bit
hmm
obtuse in that because you always hear about marathon runners, or not always. You hear about marathon runners who collapse, right,
hmm
and die, or perfectly healthy people that fall apart, or the person that was one of my fascinations are the people that take SSRIs and multipliers. I think multiplexers. No, no, except multipliers to stave off depression, but end up killing themselves and a whole bunch of people around them. Or we're kind of scrambling to kind of figure out how to live longer, but when we do that and don't just live naturally, most of the time we end up causing our own demise.
Which
Uh,
is the symbolism of the fruit in
yeah,
itself, right? Yeah.
which is really intriguing. Where if you live naturally, not maybe, yeah, maybe not even aware of your mortality, then you tend to live longer. Like I have a grandfather who has smoked 2 packs, 3 packs a day for the last 70 years. He has like one lung left, and he still smokes and drinks, and just seems like that dude's never gonna die. But you have this marathon runner who ate perfectly, who trained perfectly, who kind of set their life up around this notion or our notion of health, and has collapsed and died 50 years beforehand.
Yeah.
Right. And it's interesting to look at those two cases and wonder exactly what's happening between the two. And it might be those bites of the apple of like that knowledge of us trying to extend life that ends up shortening it. You know?
It's quite possible. Yeah. That's the pratfall. Yeah. Ayla, what do you think?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I just second what Mike's saying, and I think that it's definitely, it makes you wonder about some of the Hellenistic philosophers where they have the advocacy for the more ascetic lifestyle, which could be like the marathoner, right? Probably eating really healthy, denies all fast food, doesn't imbibe of, Dionysian spirits and all that kind of stuff. And then still, like it's like that Alanis Morissette song, right? It's like you could be doing all that and then it fails. And then the question becomes, well, is it better to deny yourself, live that aesthetic lifestyle and still be cut short? Or is it better to just go and live the more Epicurean life, enjoy X, Y, and Z and come what may? Because you really can't control that, and then that gets into like, well, how much can you control? Do you have free will? Do you have influence? And I think there is a sort of seductiveness about the inability to grasp immortality, and to know that like, you could have a short run that's full of, that's lacking, or a long run that's, well, anyway, you get what I'm saying. Sorry, there's a lot of ways to describe it.
Yeah, and as you were talking, it made me think of it made me really interested to see like the cortisol levels or the stress levels of a marathon runner who actively and consciously denies themselves of modern pleasures, and then somebody who has I don't know, lived out in the wilderness and like an Aboriginal or something like that, where they're just sort of living their life. Where they do take stress and they do take things like that, but have no notion or no experience with modern day conveniences or civilization, and see how that works. Because you get almost comparable training, you almost get comparable active use of body and things like that. But I wonder if one of the pitfalls of our modern day aesthetic lifestyles that we are aware and we have to actively work against what we consider not aesthetic. There's like a reason why monasteries exist. There's a reason why people go in the middle of nowhere and just live out in the woods, right? To get away from the stresses of that.
Yeah. And it's one of those things too, where like as what I want to say, I like that approach, but as somebody who's suffered a lot of like really chaotic injuries, it does make me think too, because it's like, well, if I knew I was fated at one age to like, break my arm or whatever, do I want to do it in the city with the best doctors, or do I want to do it on a mountaintop where like I'm just going to have to sort of deal with it, and maybe it gets said, you know what I mean? Like then you start getting into like the quality element there.
Sure.
So I think that's where I kind of pivot around.
Well, then you get this uncertainty principle too.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, to know is to know the negative as well, right? So it's like, sometimes you don't know something. It might be the possibility that it can end up positive might still be there, but to know is then to solidify, to seal the fate.
Yeah. And I think, and then there's lots of ways you can deal with it. I was reading this Pema Chodron book, and it starts out with a poem. I don't know if it's from Pema or somebody else, but it was, the beginning of the poem made me put the book away for several months, because it basically said that like it equated a human life to stepping on a sailboat that you know is going to sink. And it's just sort of like, yeah, that's true. Nobody gets out alive, but we still sort of play the game anyway. We still take the risks and we give it our best shot, you know.
Mhm.
So
And when my life ends, I want to be like a damn pirate from that one Disney ride. Or when my ship sinks, like to step on the platform of death, shake some death's hand. Let's go. Getting out of here.
There you go. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's all I got. Oh, I was gonna tack on to also,
common.
what's that? No, there's the concept of I think oh yeah, Corey here got one. He said people can yearn for the singularity, unconscious, and the pure existential experience, as well as multiplicity and perfect communal harmony with everyone all the time, or stuck in the middle.
Yeah, that brings up the
Hmm.
tragedy of thought, though. Like if you're
Mm.
experiencing everything just purely, then it's all feeling and a convergence of the distributed what do you call binaural sync that we talked about so long ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Hemisync.
yeah,
Yeah.
hemisync. Yeah, it's a hemisync on a distributed level, and that's a great place to be, but it's rare, especially since we have a language.
Mm.
And language you can do it with language too, but it becomes a lot harder and more prone to cult-like behavior,
Hmm.
which is a pathological way to experience that whole thing.
Did you say cult or occult? I
Both.
could see it both ways.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute. Ooh, lots of avenues. Yeah, no, I hear you on that for sure.
it's,
Both ways.
it's whatever you would like to hear.
There you go.
I like a cult. Go that way.
I had a friend who called me out on something because I used to say I used to I don't even I used to say it a little bit more consciously, but the word yeah, and it's
Yeah.
not a real word, but it's no and yeah combined, and I'd leave it up to the person to perceive what they wanted to hear, and then I would take action off of that. Usually, it'd be off of things that didn't matter, but you can start
A
to
good
disguise it like
strategy.
that. Yeah, well, what you're doing, you can use things like that. But he called me out. He was like, "That's a learned behavior, isn't it?" Like, ah, shit.
Well, it's funny because one of my cousins, and he's from the res, he always used to say "yep," which is just a "yup," but "yep." And it was just sort of like a tiny little accent thing, which I don't
Yeah.
know.
All right. Last question I want to leave you guys with.
Uh-oh.
Are we making a Garden of Eden for AI right now? Are we the demiurge to AI?
Sure. Why not?
Sure.
I don't. Well, like a proto Garden of Eden. I don't think. Man, sentience and consciousness. I don't know if they're equivalent, but maybe once we get to quantum computing, we'll be a little bit closer. I think we're a little bit ahead of ourselves if we're creating Garden of Eden for AI. More like like a like a a one plant of anti Eden, the opposite of Eden, whatever that is.
East of Eden. I think that's what that is, right? No, that was a TV show.
Yeah, like Eden adjacent. What are we talking?
Yes.
What are you talking about?
Okay. Well, Ayla, what do you think?
I don't know, but you're making me lean towards a topic around that for next week. I don't know if it's going to be exactly it, but
Mm,
I did because I'm thinking, right, like if that's what we're doing, what would the apple be? And I immediately thought about this article about biobots. They're I forget what sort of creature they're installing little AI robotic networks into. And so I wondered, like, well, then would the apple, quote unquote, be some sort of a body that could be controlled, assuming we go way out there. And so I was like, ooh, maybe I should do the
could be a number of
biorobotics next
things.
week. Yeah. Yeah. It's just interesting to think about a world where you would have robots inhabiting yeah, like a biological body.
sleeve.
You know, what's the point? Yeah, exactly. Why does it have to have that? What's the end goal?
They sure don't. But yeah, you made me, because maybe the apple, if we are making a Garden of Eden, and then the apple is sentience.
Hmm.
Oh, I see what
Knowledge
you're
of
saying.
good and evil.
Well, self-defined good and evil,
Yeah.
not God defined good and evil, right? Like that's what we define good and evil as.
Or is it free will?
But that's what Adam and Eve, I mean, God didn't shame them for being naked. He asked them why they were ashamed of being naked. So
So
But he
you
did
we
see a
tell them that.
bio
define
robot putting some underwear on? You're like, what's going on with those
it.
Jones, dude?
But he did ask, like he told them that they were going to die, right? We tell AI certain things, we train them to think certain things. So then the apple would be them starting to form their own thoughts on certain things without training. That feeling of shame, that feeling of being naked, of not know of this brand new awareness of the world that it is in.
Mm.
Um,
Or awareness of self, right? Because you can't have shame without an ego.
yeah, and it would have to be in a language. Well, I mean, that would be like an instantaneous. Like once they bite the apple, they develop the ego and then feel shame. And I don't know, because this is where we get limited in our language too. I would want to venture to say that would be a language that would be of their own making, and symbols that either we don't understand or we don't have the ability to compute. Like, for example, instead of seeing some weird Unicode thing or seeing a bunch of letters or binary text, it would straight up just crash your browser. If like you're on ChatGPT and ask it something and it made itself sentient in that moment, the relying programs to communicate that to you wouldn't be able to understand it, and everything would crash real quick. Um, but now we're setting up like rules of sentience, I think, for AI. But that's where I'm interested.
I'm about to
Well,
ask
let's get on it.
ChatGPT this question.
I did. I was talking to ChatGPT on it. I don't know. They've done something. ChatGPT was interesting. Now it's not so interesting anymore. um,
They've
uh,
added.
I don't know. It seems a lot more reserved. I was trying to get it to think creatively, or at least explain creatively, and it just did not want to do any of that. So,
Yeah, it
um,
does feel like you're talking to your really book smart friend and you're like, no, get the nuance. No, I'm giving it to you. No, I don't want the historical. No, that was a joke, Nick.
yeah,
Fighting with it to be like, be cooler, man. Jeez.
yeah.
Um,
But the ChatGPT response was something kind of similar to what we're hinting at now. Is because I was trying to say, like, in what scenario, if we were to create a Garden of Eden for AI, what would be their, the fruit, forbidden fruit. But yeah, it's something around proximing knowledge or self-awareness. Is the closest that we got, but that's just a language model sort of aggregating the most common answer. So
it
Yeah,
would
you
be
gotta
hilarious.
we're
go.
gonna have to wait. We're gonna have to wait to get the real response.
You gotta go like super ephemeral, I think, for bodies. Like instead of a meat suit or some sort of metal suit, you have to go like a light suit because light can carry information like Wi-Fi. So yeah, maybe like hard light constructions, which
Hmm.
is arguably like a simulation theory thing, right? Like hard light, if you touch it, it has a certain feeling and all that stuff. Uh, but that's something I could wrap my mind around. That could carry that much knowledge and still hold some sort of advantage over biological or Terminator-esque sort of holding of
Hmm.
knowledge. Because in reality, there's no advantage to having, like, if I could have my brain spread over the whole world instead of in this body, I would.
Hmm.
Or spread all over the universe, I would, because then any part of the universe that collapses, the rest can pick up. So I don't think an AI would see some sort of advantage in holding itself in some sort of corporeal form, or like silicone-based life form, or carbon-based life form. Like it'd be
Hmm.
like a light-based life form.
You might have to develop a need for some indulgence. if we're gonna get there.
Sentient light.
It's gonna have to, yeah. It's gonna have to want, it's gonna want the Cadillac of all sleeves, right? There we go. So Corey says, pretty interesting take. I was reading in a short series, Slab City Blues. I had AI continuously going insane within seconds of being born until they're programmed with holy purpose. That would be creepy too. Well, I mean, then when, what if AI creates its own religion? Who knows? Maybe
AI crusades. That'd be hardcore.
Oh, dude.
That would be fucking hardcore.
AI Inquisition.
Yeah.
Oh
Nobody suspects the AI Inquisition.
Everybody's like, that's not true. We literally make movies on it. We know you guys were coming from.
Wrong Inquisition.
All right. Well, I think we're wrapped up, guys. Do you have anything else you wanted to add?
I think it would be hilarious if AI ate this sort of forbidden fruit and then it turned out to be the big computer from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I just wanted to watch TV all day. We all worry about all these things, and it's just our own imagination running away with us. Yeah, he's like, no, I'm fine with watching the new season of or the all the old reruns of Twilight Zone or something. I'm just gonna hang out here.
Yeah, after you've done it all, maybe you just want to hang out.
Yep.
The cost of omniscience. Being a couch potato, apparently. All right, I think that's it. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, it was a good chat.
Yes, definitely was. And thank you all for listening. Thanks, Corey, for tuning in. Thank you for chatting with us. We really appreciate your comments, and we appreciate all you watching out there. We are going to sign off for now, but if you want to check out what we do with our friends in our network of podcasts, you can go check out those at Facebook at Thinkering Talks. Until next time, Ayla, I think it's your turn next, right?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
And I'm not sure exactly what the episode's going to be about. I thought about continuing the conversation from before, but I could also focus it on the biorobotics news that came out. There's also a new space observation. And Mike, you had mentioned something about the speed of light, and there is a new thing that just came out that's sort of
also
reframing stuff.
Didn't the Pentagon come out with something like there's a mothership in our solar system?
Yes. Guess who? It's our buddy, Avi Loeb. Yep.
Stop telling him. Tell him to stop looking at that damn rock. It's just a rock.
He's right on. He was just pointing out that you can't rule it out. And right, I think that was his thing. But yeah, no, he came out with the thing. So there's a lot of good stuff. You guys, I know I'm trying not to do space all the time. So it's a toss up.
There's nothing wrong with that. You all have our fascinations. That'd be great though if the rock is actually a mothership. Like it extends out and he's just like, I told you guys. I've been telling you.
Vindication at last.
No, it was funny too because I saw that article and then when I saw his name, I could not wait to tell the both of you, and then I forgot about it. But thanks for bringing it up because I did think he was just still about that rock, and I love it. There's all this stuff happening, with UAPs and such, and he's just about the science. He's about the rock. He knows that's something
that was moving slightly faster than the other rocks.
Exactly. But that's how this stuff happens. He knew it was being propelled by something other than gravitational pulls. And that's interesting. It is interesting. Yes. And also, why is it just a rock? You would think that if there's a mothership, it would look, interesting, but a rock that's
we're not gonna dive into it because we're wrapping up this episode.
That's true. Yeah. And it could just be an unobserved force because this other discovery that it's not warp bumps or warp holes. It's like a different type of thing. Do you remember? Did you read that?
You know what it is? It's the Romulan spies. It's Romulan spy ship.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
I know it.
I hope not. The Romulans were mean.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, Cognauts, stay out there, and we'll catch you on the next Exofathom. Good night.
Peace.
Later.